Oh, great. Okay. We had a long-standing problem resolved today. Thank you so much for joining me in the room with a special agenda. Give me 1 second. Okay. Uh-oh. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for joining me again in the room with a special agenda. We'll be discussing a topic that the school year started. So, yay for those parents who are looking forward to it for their children, um, because it's time. Uh, for those who are confined with their children for some time, as you become a parent, you begin to realize what your parents looked forward to. Not just that break, but so that you all decide that you all will stay in each other's good graces. It's time for y'all to leave the house and stop looking at each other for 24 hours, just wriggling your eyeballs. But so in Georgia, school started for us where we live in Paulding. It started the 1st. Um, in Alabama, I know it started the 8th, and in some parts of Atlanta, I have friends whose children, it started the 8th, and a lot of scrambling, but we appreciate our teachers. So much is done, and so much help is given. So many bonds are formed. And it's really important that you get it right because education is one of those things that is so important. It's crucial that it gets done properly. And for those parents who homeschool, it is definitely a journey. And for those who help them, who I was told by someone who, once you decide to homeschool, the things that you don't realize, um, you do realize it, and you don't. Once you make that decision to withdraw your child or not enroll them within the public school system or even a private secular school system, and you decide I can do this because I know my child better than anyone else, um, you begin to appreciate how much others do because it is an undertaking, but it is a gift if you have the patience and the willingness to take those steps to make sure that your child's educational needs are met. Um, and so, for those parents, you deserve an extra treat every day. And it's not easy, but it's sometimes not easy for the kids because they don't always get the depends on the infrastructure of your own personal household, how many children they have, what's your social dynamic yourself or your family. They don't always get the socialization that you would like for them to have. But I recently was told, like I started out talking about, um, in understanding that once you make that decision to start homeschooling your child, what help is available, what help isn't available, and that it really is not the school system's um, responsibility to help you with your child. And because that's your job, you would not go to a job you do not work for and ask them for a paycheck. You didn't earn anything from them. So there's you don't do anything for them, they're not required to do anything for you. And it's kind of that relationship within the school system. They're very kind. And I've run into so many people who are very helpful, but the realization that when it finally hits you that all the responsibility of making sure that all the things that needs to be done for your child educationally are done by you, and knowing what you need to do and what you are required to do and what help is available. What can they do? And like I said, I have a friend who recently who works within the school system. She's a wonderful person, but she let me know, um, technically they're not supposed to put themselves in that position as far as helping you is concerned because you're not within the school system, and you're actually asking them on the clock to help you do something that you're not affiliated with. It's like going asking for to go across the street and asking McDonald's, and they're across the street from each other, and asking them to provide you a meal, but you paid somewhere else. You paid the other restaurant. So when you take on that huge responsibility, you have to be prepared. And some of the things that you need to know and what's available for you, what resources are available, and what you can do. Now, if you are within the school system and you have special needs kids, it's really important that you start to find out the list of individuals that are responsible to help you and your child navigate the path of what is necessary in their educational journey. Like, what is it they're supposed to do? What do you need? It's important that one, as a parent, you know what you expect, want, and need for your child. For me, it was, I've been doing this for a little bit, not the homeschooling thing, but my children have been on the spectrum, and so we've been dealing with this a little bit for a while. And understanding, and so many times I walked into that wall without understanding till much further down the road what I missed to end up walking into that particular wall. And one of the things that a lot of parents walk into that particular wall with is understanding what it is that they need and what they're supposed to have. And that's really hard. I can't tell you how many times that different therapists have said, okay, we're coming to the end of this um, part of what we were supposed to be working on. What is it that you need for your child? But oftentimes, as parents, you don't know, particularly if you're a new parent and your child has been newly diagnosed, whatever things is it, whether they're on the spectrum or they have ADHD, or do they have other mental delays or learning delays or disabilities, you're not sure where they're supposed to be. So that's important. That's key. Having that conversation where make sure that when you come to those meetings or if you ask for a meeting, be prepared. When you get there, have wrote down as many of the questions that you think that you need to ask. And one of the particular questions that you'll need to ask is, where is my child supposed to be? Where is it that we're supposed to be at? What are they supposed to be doing at this age? What are they supposed to be working on? Where were we last? Where do we need to be headed? Asking them about an IEP. Never be afraid to ask the questions that your child, that you need to know for your child. Like, if they are talking and you feel like they're intentionally talking above your head, or they're just using language that you feel that they're conversing with each other and it is where you're missing what's being said, it is no shame in saying, can you break that down? Can you tell me in layman's terms what you're particularly saying? Because there are instances, and I won't say all, most are not, but there are instances where there will be, I'll say, middle school behavior, where I say, if they feel that you're questioning them too much and they want to show you how much education they have over you, they will intentionally talk over your head. There have been instances where they will do that. So to humble yourself and say, I don't know what you're saying, or to say, can I take some notes so that you can be better prepared and so that you will know exactly what it is you need to request for your child. Because oftentimes, the reason that we miss so much is because um, ego prevents us from saying, I don't know what they need, and I need you to tell me what you think they need. Now, you have to be careful because you want to make sure that they understand that you are of the understanding of what's going on with your child and you're not asking them to take over the assignment. That's not what's being requested. What's being requested is, I need to know what I don't know about what's happening. because oftentimes they will, within the structure of an IEP meeting, they're building an IP for your child, which is an individual educational plan for your child. Like, what are they planning to do? But if you don't know what they need, it's kind of hard for you to follow along. Like, you're listening and you hear what they're saying, and you hear that this is what they're going to do, and this wasn't what was met. You can also ask, what is it that I can do to be a better assistance with my child? And how can, if I can't do this on my own, what resources are available that I can use so that I can be better equipped to do what you're suggesting that I need to have done for him with myself and my maid or myself or whatever the structure is. And if you are sharing um, or you're co-parenting this child, making sure that you have that information, maybe a copy or whatever, so that you can pass it on to the other parent and you all can have a discussion. Make sure that you try to keep them in the loop. And if they can or aren't able to, try not to make it more difficult by attacking them, because they may feel intimidated by that meeting or they don't understand the importance of it. But sometimes just because someone does not understand the significance of something doesn't mean you need to make them feel worse by attacking their character for not understanding. Because there'll be times when we're going to miss stuff, but we have to consider how we want to be spoken to if we misunderstand. If we misunderstand something, we don't want to attack. We don't want to be attacked, so we don't want to do that. And we also don't want to frustrate ourselves by attacking our child, when, because it is a verbal attack when you start to desecrate somebody's character or say that they could work harder on something when they really are working as hard as they can. Sometimes there will be moments when it's evidence that they're not giving their best effort. But encouragement works much better than assaulting someone's weaknesses. What they're working on does need to be worked on, and there is a way in which we can address it with gentleness. Sometimes you have to address certain things with kid gloves in order to build them up. And building someone up means more than just saying kind words temporarily. And then, as soon as the moment gets difficult, getting frustrated and frustrating them by putting more pressure. And it's important too that when we are making this plan and we discussed our IEPs, that if we've already had an IEP meeting, keep copies of, if you, prior to the next IEP meeting that you have scheduled, preferably the night before, the morning before, you take the time to read over it and highlight what was highlighted, what was worked on last time, and what needed to be worked on, and let them know what progress that you see, because they need to know also that you do. The teachers need to know, and instructors and different ones that are involved in the building of your child's IEP, that you appreciate what was done, and so that you can also be prepared to let them know what improvements that you see um, need to be changed, and what changes that you have seen, and the progress your child is making, and what you think could be done differently from your own personal experience with your child and working on that. But what you don't want to do is go unprepared, too angry. Even if it seems like they're not doing certain things and certain things aren't met, it's best to ask more questions with the tone of concern and interest versus frustration and agitation. You don't want to go into that, because they will label you as that, and it puts people's guards up. And if they put their guard up, it's really hard to have a conversation with someone who is not listening to you with the air of hearing you. If you all have both, as I call it, made soft swings at each other, because they will get less, you will get less assistance, and it will form bad bonds. rather than good ones. If you've ever tried to glue something and glued it on Cricut, you know the frustration of that. Trying to get that undone so that you can get it put on properly. So it's easier to take the time to try to figure out how that you all can work together versus being frustrated. Also, be prepared to take notes within the meetings. When your child has those IEP meetings, it's important that you take notes because there might be things that aren't in the IEP meeting, in the IEP notes. There may be other things that are said that you might need them to expound on later. They may not have time within that meeting, or you may want to look into something yourself that they stated, something that you want to ask further questions about, or some things that you may feel need to be added, or someone else that you may need to come to your IEP meeting. You can have their doctors come. You can have, if they have therapists, you can have their OT come to the meeting if you feel that that is helpful. Um, you you need to know that you have a right to record those meetings and let them know ahead of time that you're recording it for their and your personal benefit, just so that you can look back over it so it doesn't seem combative. You can listen. I can look over it and see what I said or didn't say that I meant to say, what you said that I might have missed. For parents who have ADHD or um, possibly learning disorders or attention disorders, sometimes there's so much going on in your head within the meeting that there may be things that are stated that they did say that you didn't hear. You heard it, but it kind of ran through it just went in one ear, as the older people say, and went out the other. So it's important that you keep that information so you can review it later for possible further use. Not necessarily, you don't want them to feel like you're doing that for any other reason. And they cannot deny you the opportunity to record a meeting if you're having some issues with it, if there's some discrepancies. And in the event that you have to have private meetings with the teachers that are not IEP meetings, your, per your child's behavior, per an incident that happened within the school system, anything that occurs, you have the right to let them know that within this meeting you will be recording it. You don't need to bring up if you're getting an attorney or any of those. Now, anything that you're going to do, do. If you're not going to do it, you don't need to mention it because you may change your mind about that, and then they may feel threatened because one isn't sure the direction this will take, and you may find out things that are going on that your child was not honest with you about, or that they saw it differently. There was one particular incident, not involving an attorney or anything of that matter, but how children view things and what's going on. There was a particular issue where my son had said some things that he should not say. And per being on the spectrum, his response, the teacher let me know what he'd done. But I did not get the full story from either side because sometimes people tend to abbreviate things, not in an attempt to hide things, but they just don't see the need to give you those seemingly minor details because they don't understand where your mind is going with that. So there was some language. And what he said, they never said why or the situation in which they walked upon him saying what he said. So I said to him, why were you using this language, or why did you say this? And he said, well, they just kept hitting me. They kept hitting me with the ball. They just kept hitting me and kept hitting me. Now, I have been in gym and been hit. I was not in a game. There was no game going on. They were intentionally hitting me. I wasn't doing anything. It wasn't anybody I was having a disagreement with. I don't know why these young boys. I guess we were kids. Boys do stuff. I don't know why they felt like it was necessary to hit me about 4 times. I wasn't even sitting in a basketball goal. But anyway, so in my mind, I'm thinking someone's possibly bullying my child, and they're not telling me what he finally. I said, so I went back to the teacher and asked her. He said that they were hitting him with a ball. She said they were playing dodgeball. Now, had I taken my child's word on this would have went possibly left. I'm going to the principal. I'm talking to the principal about what's happening. Or had I just taken her word and disregarded what he said and only heard what he said, heard what the teacher said, my child would have been getting some form of punishment. His lack of understanding was, you're talking during a dodgeball game. You all are playing dodgeball. That's what's happening. So she neglected to tell me that he was playing dodgeball, and that's what it was. And he neglected to explain to me that it was a dodgeball game, and he just kept getting hit. So he said it out of frustration. He wasn't angry, but what he said, I missed telling you. He said, I didn't know she was standing there. The point was, you weren't supposed to be doing that anyway. And if you're having a problem with this game and you feel like, well, of course they're supposed to target you, it's dodgeball. But if you don't want to play, get out the game. You could have said, I'm not good at this. This isn't working out in my behavior, in my behalf. I'm just getting beat up. This ain't working. That wasn't their intent, but he was an easy target. It was what it was. But sometimes, even within, so within dealing within the school system, sometimes there are going to be moments where people aren't, each person is going to miss a part of that story. So it could go one way or the other. And then oftentimes, even in relationships and dealing with people, information is given, and it may seem like the person is trying to mislead you when that's not what's happening whatsoever. So when the infrastructure of dealing with the you're not there as a parent, you can't see everything, and sometimes the teachers don't see everything or they miss parts of it as well as the students. So sometimes it will be a misguided, misinformed situation. So it's important sometimes that you all sit down, have a meeting first, but make sure you record sometimes what's said, so maybe you can review what you might have missed so you can go back over it and have conversations with them possibly later and ask the questions that you need to ask, whether it's their education or what's happening in a disciplinary manner with them. Also, another thing that's important is if you have children that are on the spectrum or have any learning issues or emotional issues, because some children are in programs because they have emotional issues and they're on different medications or whatever and whatnot. But it is important that you talk to them about having a behavioral plan for your child. No one can tell you no, that you can't. And in most cases, it should be done, but it's not automatically done. This is, if I feel like it's not intentional, excuse me, it is a slippage in the system. It's just one of those things that kind of slides through. They figure that you all can work it out without saying, we have had this pattern of behavior more than twice. And I feel like within other systems, the penal system, there's this three-strike rule system where you may end up in jail for something trivial because it's your third strike. The other things were maybe more major, but those patterns of behavior caused you to get this possible permanent consequence. So, when dealing with your kids, if you have a behavioral problem, your child has a behavioral problem that has presented itself on more than one occasion, you need to have a behavioral plan, which one of the teachers that has a master's will have that written out. If the child's regular instructor does not have one. But you all need to sit down together, hash that out, so that you all can figure out what it is that can be done so that it is not something that is frequently happening and not you're not having a resolution and they're trying to discipline your child in a manner that does not fit with their IEP or their 504. A lot of times, there are a lot of parents that are denied a 504. If your child, let me back up just a teeny bit. If your child is on any behavioral medication or has any diagnosis of any disabilities or delay, just them being in the program, even if they are high up on the spectrum, or they are high enough in their testing and IQ score where it's clear that they have a delay, but they don't consider their delay severe enough for them to be in a program where, say, they would be a, getting a chance to go to the Special Olympics, they still are entitled to a 504. So you can ask them to create one for you. And it's important also as a parent that you don't give up when you have things that you see that they may want to dismiss within the structure of what you have noticed going on. If they're constantly sending you notes, this is not, as a parent, you being upset because you're getting notes. As a parent, it's important that you be clear to them that I want us to be on the same team. This is not me being frustrated with you. This is me trying to understand how we can work this situation out so that we can help this child. This is not me standing up against you, and I don't want this to feel like you feel you need to stand up against me. I don't want this to be us in a relationship where we are constantly not hearing each other. This should not be where we are treating each other like we are adversaries, because that's not what you want. And if you have a teacher that, if despite your best efforts, that's what seems to be occurring frequently, you do have the right to say this. Go to the Board of Education, speak to the principal, find out who you need to speak to, call the board and say, this doesn't seem to be a good fit. I feel my child would fare better if you have another instructor within this um, school that could work out. And if they don't have anyone within that school, you have a right to ask and have them reevaluated so that they could possibly be sent to another school so that they can get the help that they need and your child's needs can be met. That is your goals and intentions. You have to advocate for your child, because sometimes there are instances where they will feel that the parents are missing what's happening. And there will be moments as a parent you will miss what's happening for your child. Sometimes we will want to go faster than the situation of our child actually allows for, because what we want isn't in the best interest of the child. We have to make sure too that our advocacy for our child isn't about us personally making it a matter of our ego, versus trying to make sure that we get our child's needs met, even if it isn't our dreams. Because I always say it feels, when you have children that are special needs, all parents, when you have children, you have these dreams and goals of, I'll say, ambitions, sometimes overly grand, where we have these big things that we want our children to do. And when you find out your children are diagnosed with certain behavioral, mental health, or learning disorders, it feels as if you're somewhere else, particularly if you're not a parent who experienced any of that yourself. If you performed really well in school and your child is struggling, it almost feels as if once you get that information, it feels like a wave. If you've ever been standing in the ocean, even near the just right there in the sand, that wave can knock you down. If it's just over your feet, it will take you down. And it feels like that sometimes. It's just right there, and the tide just It feels like you just get overwhelmed, just washes over you. It feels like a dream deferred because you had plans for your children and you had hopes and you had goals. And then when that information comes to you, it's as if everything you dreamed gets washed away. It gets washed out to sea. But you have to learn to make those adjustments for your child and not make it a matter of advocating for your ego, not advocating for your child. Because as parents, if we're not careful, depends on our personal nature, we will be taking that to the meeting each time rather than being there to make sure that that child's needs are being met. We're putting what we hoped for them on the table. Sometimes what we think that that child needs, one, they may not be able to meet that. Two, that child doesn't even want what you want. You're pushing and they're trying to please you. So it's undue pressure on everybody in the room. And if we were more honest with ourselves, we could be more helpful to our child and form a great bond with them. It's important also that you find out, once you find out what your child's diagnosis is and they have them in the school system, find out who their caseworker is. And if your child is receiving any supplemental help from Social Security, sorry, you can go through Social Security and find out who that case manager is. Also, I found that you can get respite help for them, and the state will take care of that, particularly if you have a child who has any physical delays, physical disabilities, I mean. Um, find out who that is, and they will be able to let you know. And they can get respite, and other family members can help you with their respite, and the state will um, accommodate them. They will give them money for that. So, hopefully, this information was informative to you all. Soon, we will be talking about more do's and don'ts, and we will have a show entitled What I Did Not Know. We will have some people that work within the school system soon. And hopefully, if all goes well, the person that I'm hoping will be able to do this with a persons, and preferably will prayerfully be able to have an actual panel of parents who have some things, who have special needs kids, and we will be able to ask those questions in live time. And if you all would like to send questions out, let me know. Feel free. Thank you all so much for taking time to join me. Those who were able to join me tonight, I appreciate you taking the time out of your work schedule, day to day, and family time to do this. Hopefully, this was useful. Be kind to your loved ones. Let them know every day how much they mean to you. Be kind to those even who aren't kind to you, or you don't feel you're getting the kindness that you're giving back. It may be just a misunderstanding. Love each other and be kind because it's a choice. You all have a great evening. Thank you for joining me in the room again with a special agenda. Good night. Good night. Okay.